I have a new haircut.
Ayo. Ayo. Heartaches, why does my heart break every time I take a shit on the fucking toilet? Every day I have to take a shit, it smells like death. Every time I eat that broccoli and some beans, yeah, this is fucking insane. I gotta stop eating all this fucking shit that makes me gay. I'm not gay, but I gotta confess, I like big butts and I like dude sex.
Okay, so we are back in sync, I believe. I have a new haircut. I just had to get that out of the fucking way.
Today we're gonna be talking about how young people have basically zero identity. In the past, people had limited options to create and express their identity compared to nowadays. Because nowadays you have internet, you have books, you have the old media, you have the old ways of sharing media. But what's also happening is that you have this internet thing here that allows you to create content and spread it, and it allows you to express yourself in any way you want. And yeah, that's cool and all. So what even is an identity? It's the distinguishing character or personality or traits of that personality of an individual. So based on this little definition that I found on the internet, I think it was Merriam-Webster dictionary. Based on this definition, we can say that it's the way we are perceived and how others perceive us. So it's not only how we see ourselves, but how others see us. That's the identity. It's the way you see someone express themselves. Right now, you think that maybe this guy here in front of me, this Randy dude that's standing here, that because he has a leather jacket on, and because he has glasses and a mask on, well, he's trying to protect his identity. Maybe he doesn't want people to know his real life. Maybe he doesn't want people to know what he looks like in real life or what he acts like in real life. But the fucking thing is that if you go to literally the first video where I have a face cam, like this talking video, that Modern Friendships and Relationships video, you can see my face. I do this shit just because I want to, not because I want to protect myself. Everyone pretty much fucking knows what I look like. I do this shit just for fun, right? And you here on YouTube might see me and think that, oh, he's this maybe sort of funny guy, the guy that wants to talk about some issues that bother him. Well, in real life, I'm very quiet. At work, I'm like the quiet guy, the guy that doesn't really talk to anyone. Even in school, I was that guy. In university. In elementary and in high school, I was pretty much the class clown. I was doing funny shit. And that's how people knew me. That's the social role identity I had in school. But outside of that class clown persona I had, or the identity of a class clown, I was the depressed, the miserable guy. I was a gamer. And everyone knew that I was a gamer, but outside of that high school and elementary school environment, I was also a musician. And I still am a musician. Like, I'm writing an album right now. It's like a metal rock and roll album that I'm writing in FL Studio, but whatever. It's these identities, or as I called it in one of my papers in school, in the first year of university, I called it masks that we put on for different people. Like, our identity is created by the outside identity, what's on the outside, and then there's that thing only we see on the inside. In other terms, identity is the things, activities, looks that form our image, what we are, our identity, or our personality. So a lot of people base their identity on their mental health issues on the internet. Not in real life, but on the internet, because that's where most of our identity nowadays is. I'm gonna touch up on this later. So these people sometimes use mental health issues or illnesses such as depression, ADHD, various disorders and even genders. They use that as their entire identity. Like, this thing that's bad about them is their defining characteristic. It's like, I am this person. I am this depressed piece of shit that has all these issues, and there's nothing else interesting about me. That's me. I am my struggles. People use this to create an identity on the internet because there's nothing else really interesting about them. A lot of times you see these people say stuff like, oh, I'm so depressed, and you check out their profiles and they talk about nothing but depression. And it's sad, because are you really that fucking boring? Is your life really that fucking miserable? Is your life really that empty that you really have to define yourself on your fucking mental illnesses? It's really, like, why is your life really that sad? Are you really that obsessed with your issues? Like, is your life really that empty? Is your life really that boring? Are you really that much of a boring piece of shit that you literally have to define yourself with something that most people in the real world or other people don't define themselves upon? A lot of these people with these mental health issues often self-diagnose, or they go to a therapist with a list of issues that will grant them the status of a person with a mental health issue, when they don't even actually have these sorts of mental health issues, or when they actually don't even suffer with these issues. It's a tool. These people that create their entire identities, or that construct their identities around these mental health issues, do it to gain an advantage. What sort of advantage? Well, they want to gain pity. They want people to be like, oh, you poor little soul, you have it so fucking hard. Oh my god, you're such... Oh my, you're depressed, you have ADHD, you have depression, you have bipolar disorder. Oh, my little child, sweet child, you're so precious. No, fuck that. It's a form of hypochondria, I would say, or victimization, because these people want nothing but pity. They want to gain an advantage, a social advantage. They construct their identities in a way that would make other people pity them. And when they are attacked, often, they pull out this victim card of, well, I'm depressed, I have BPD, don't say these things around me, or don't use these words. And they sometimes use this in real life as well. And it's pure victimization. It's playing the victim card over and over again to gain a social advantage. And people love to pretend to be victims sometimes, purely for the attention. Like, these people are so deprived of attention, and they need attention so much that they define their entire existence around these issues. And I don't mean it as in, don't gain attention in a professional setting, or when you're professionally talking about depression or something like that. No, I'm not saying that. It's bad. What I'm saying is, when you're trying to be a regular person and you construct your entire identity in your bio around your depression or your mental health issue, then that's a problem. That's a fucking problem. So, another big chapter of my rant today are subcultures. So, what's so different about nowadays when we look at today's society and when we look at the past? Well, the major difference in society, at least the one that I see, is that people in the past had subcultures and they had more communities. And the last real subculture, I could say, was in the digital age, and that was the emo or the scene subcultures. Those were the last two real subcultures. You know, these emo scene girls that everyone is thirsting after nowadays, and they sort of came back into trend, and everyone is so horny after them. They became very sexualized, but nowadays nobody really has a subculture. There isn't really a defining subculture, because everything nowadays is based on consumerism and algorithms, because it's the internet, and nobody really has subcultures in the true sense that somebody would have a subculture, because everything became aestheticized for the internet. Everything is just aesthetics nowadays. When compared to the subcultures of the past, nowadays no one is really constructing their life around that one thing, around that subculture. So in the past, Gen X had subcultures like goth and skinheads even, which is a major side note, as skinheads were originally against racism and fascism, but that image got hijacked by Nazis and extremists, and media used it to create sort of a shock value to garner attention. They really care about hard labor, they pride themselves on labor, they care about music and live in that true skinhead life. So like Sharps, for example, they are really what should come into your head when somebody says skinhead, because all that Nazi shit, that's not real skinheads. And then millennials had their subcultures as well, as I said, emo, scene kids, hardcore kids even, skaters. We had skater subcultures. But the problem there is that when you look at someone nowadays, you don't say, oh, that's a skater, or that's a goth, or that's an emo, or that's a hardcore kid. No, you say, what the fuck are you? You don't really know what these people are like. Not just based on the aesthetics, but the way they talk to you or something. Like, most people nowadays are really, as I would say it, or call it, most people nowadays are just gray. They are like these gray NPC characters. Gen Z and Gen A don't really have a chance to create a specific subculture, or to create subcultures overall. And why? Because nowadays we have none of that, because most people aren't in subcultures and they don't have communities. Because in the past, how did you get into a subculture? When you were friends with people in real life, when you were friends with people that were in that subculture, or you've seen it somewhere in the town, you were outside and you've seen some people that were dressing like skinheads, and you were like, oh, what the fuck, this is kinda cool. Or punks. Oh, these people look interesting, what are they about? I'm gonna start being friends with them. And now I'm in that subculture. Slowly but gradually they became parts of that subculture, but Gen Z and Gen Alpha kids don't really have that anymore. Did you notice that? Like, my generation and the younger generation doesn't have a subculture anymore. We have some things that you could call a subculture, but they are mostly just aesthetical, as I said. So why do you even need a subculture? Well, you really don't, to live and to be a functioning member of society, but a subculture can have a great effect on how you identify yourself, how you construct your identity, how others perceive you, and how your friends perceive you, and how you perceive yourself. Most people nowadays, as I said, are really shapeless. Gray people, NPCs, whatever you want to call it. Most people nowadays are really shapeless. Their identity is just, I am this person. And it's not bad. It's not really bad to just be a person who enjoys some things or many things. It's not bad. But it makes people unique. It makes, in fact, people so unique that no one really is unique anymore. Because all this uniqueness just makes everyone so unique that nobody really is unique anymore. Like when everyone is special in some sort of way. When somebody creates their own identity based on gender or something. Like the Identities in bio. When everyone is so painfully unique that nobody is unique anymore, that's a major problem, because everyone's identity is so unique to their interests and to their political views and whatever, that nobody really can be even a part of a subculture anymore, because they are just too unique for subcultures. There's too much diversity for subcultures. I've touched upon politics here a little bit before, but that's the one thing we still have in common with everyone else around us and with people on the internet. If we choose a certain political direction for our life and for our identity, is that we have our politics is what we have in common. But the problem with this is that people are more polarized than ever. You have this side and you have this side. You have liberals and you have conservatives. And when somebody says that they are a centrist, for example, then they are ostracized. Or when they say that they are a member of some more fringe political viewpoint, then they are ostracized or pushed to the side as well. They are labeled by the opposite side of the barricade as being a member of this entire political spectrum. And it's a political spectrum. Yes, it is. It absolutely is. But the problem is that we all just lump each other into the broader boxes. We label them as liberals or as conservatives just because they are slightly to the right of us or slightly to the left of us on the political spectrum. Some people even start making their political views their entire identity. I'm not talking about politicians or professional commentators. I'm talking here about people who just talk about politics but don't work in politics. These people, when you get enough of these people into one room or into one Facebook group or whatever, they start creating echo chambers where their political bias are further confirmed and further reinforced to the point where they don't even consider the opposite side as maybe being right. And that's another big problem, because it creates the echo chambers. And there's no chance to create an identity specific to you, because you need to confront your political views to other political views. And when you're in these echo chambers, you have to conform to the majority political views, otherwise you're not anymore a member of this echo chamber. And when you even slightly deviate from these political views that your echo chamber has, then you're now no longer a member of the tribe. It's tribalism, basically. But politics were manipulated by the powerful people to a certain point where it's no longer possible to call yourself just a conservative, or where it's impossible to really hold your own personal views and still call yourself a conservative or a liberal, because when you display a slightly opposite or when you slightly deviate from the majority view, then you're no longer a Democrat or a Republican or a conservative or a liberal or whatever. So with this whole political discussion, you have to sometimes say, oh, I hold this view, even when you don't. And there's sort of a double life in that, because you truly believe in something that you don't really profess or you don't really adhere to practically in real life. And it's a double life of sorts, because in the past people had identities that were truly theirs and they really believed what they preached. And now people have an online persona and a real life persona. So what they act like or what their identity is like in real life versus what their identity is like on the internet, it's entirely two different people. Often it's like you're an entirely different person online and in real life. Oftentimes the more vibrant persona is the one that people have online. And why? Because we don't even talk to people in real life anymore. We don't hang out in real life anymore. Like, most of my friends that I've ever had or hanged out with, they moved away. Nobody really hangs out in real life anymore. And when I tried to hang out with people, then they didn't have time, and those friendships fell apart because, oh, we have the online world, we can hang out there, but what the fuck do you want to do there? I don't even hang out with people in real life anymore, or I don't even hang out with people online anymore. I stopped playing games with people. I don't even have like a gaming group, and I used to have a lot of gaming groups. I used to have a lot of online friends, but I don't anymore. Why? Because nobody fucking has the time to maintain those friendships. Nobody really has the time to maintain any sort of friendship. Even in real life, people don't have that time anymore because the world is too diverse. We have too many opportunities. And we now have to keep up this online persona and this in real life persona. And it's not like this is applicable to everyone in the world. Certainly there's more people living in real life than there is in the online world. And they manage to foster long-standing friendships. But the problem is that there are so many people, even in real life, that have no friends. And there's this it basically started the loneliness epidemic. Not just the male loneliness, as I've talked in one of my previous videos, but it started a general loneliness epidemic. Everyone is lonely nowadays. Nobody really has permanent friend groups because everyone can go anywhere. Everyone can move away. Sometimes they have to move away for opportunities to live a better life, and they lose all their friends, and re-establishing a friend group is really hard in this online, internet-dominated world. This online world started having a really unhealthy effect on the real life, because we don't even bother making friends in real life because we have no opportunities to meet friends in real life anymore. Because when there was no online world, you just had to go and make friends in real life if you wanted to hang out with someone. But now you have internet and you're like, oh, I don't really want to go outside and get bitches in real life. I just want to stay at home and play games, or doom scroll all day if you don't play games, or I just want to watch anime all day, and it's really fucking sad. And we often forget that the more important society is the one in real life and not the one online. But the world has been molded in such a way by corporations and by powerful and rich people that nowadays the more important society is the one that's online. That's where we have the second persona. And so we started focusing on this entire online world, and we started creating our identities on the internet, because that's where the corporations like Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and the dating platforms and whatever the fuck, that's the direction they started pushing society in through advertising and through various tactics. And it's really shitty because we started putting the online world above the real world. So we are still social creatures, we are still tribalistic as we see on the internet, but the problem is that we do this shit online nowadays without actually being in presence of other people. We are the most social, asocial creatures there ever have been, or that we've ever been. Like, we are maintaining society without actually maintaining a physical society. Like, we live next to each other, and that's all nice and swell. The problem there is that we maintain a society while not actually talking to each other. Because the faceless avatar there on the other side of the screen isn't a real person. Like, that's a mask the other person projects. And when you see a bunch of words on the screen, you don't see that as a real person saying that shit. You just see that as words on screen that somebody out there has written. So how do we make friends and how do we find love? As I said, nowadays we do it mostly online, because in real life we don't really have that many opportunities anymore. And we build friendships and we build our romantic relationships on common ground. But when the common ground is so fucking large that it encompasses the entirety of human experience, it doesn't really give us anything specific to have common ground on. Do you get what I'm getting at here? I don't think you get it. Because there's so much choice that when you have to pick what you want to have in common with other people, or to build a relationship or something that you have in common with other people, you can't really do that because there's too many things to build your identity upon, or there's too many things to construct your personality upon, or your interests. There's so much of that shit that you can't really connect with anyone because you are so unique. You have such unique interests and views that you can't really connect with anyone because nobody is really compatible with you. Nobody is really compatible with no one. It's in the past when we didn't have internet and all this free shit, or all this access to information in the online society. When we didn't have that, we had limited options on what to base our identities upon and what to base our lives upon. And the problem there was that, yeah, you had pretty limited options of what to construct your identity upon, but you had a larger chance that you would find people that would be right for you, be it in terms of friendships or romantic relationships. But nowadays, you have so much diverse shit on the internet that you can use to construct your identity upon, that you don't really have nothing in common with other people. Especially not those in real life, because if you really try to be an online person and to really create a vibrant online persona, you're certainly not going to get friends in real life, at work, or etc. Because your interests are just too diverse. They are just too specific to you. Like, you may be an anime fan, but this other anime fan won't be your friend because you don't watch the same type of anime. Do you get what I'm getting at here? I think you do now. And also, virtual communities cannot replace the in real life communities, because you need real people to be around you and to live with. And you need the real life community. But we don't have that anymore. So, what is even a true community? So, it's the type of community you have in real life. Simple as. Or that's like the very distilled version without having to give you my master's degree paper to read. But basically, true communities in real life have disappeared. And that's the subcultures. That's the people you live around with. Like the people on your street, or the friends in your town or city. We don't really have real communities anymore, because in the past we had friend groups, subcultures, ways of meeting people who shared values like us, but we nowadays have so many options that we can't really choose which option to use to create these communities and to create our identities. There's just too many options, and we don't know what to do with that. And real life communities used to provide value by influencing your life directly and indirectly. And they were helping you to grow as a person and to make your life better, or they were doing important stuff to your surroundings. And through these things, these community activities, you are able to create your own unique personality. You are really able to be a specific person. You could have an identity. Kids and people aren't really in any sorts of communities, because you have more tools for connection, but ironically we are more divided and more lonely than ever. As I said, that whole loneliness epidemic. And so, to cope with this reality, we started creating virtual communities. But the problem there is that a person can be a part of many communities at the same time. Like back in the day, when you had a community, you really did specific activities together, and you could be maybe a member of 2 or 3 communities at the same time. But nowadays, you can just be a member of any community you see on the internet. And that's a problem, because communities no longer are localized to an area. They are borderless. They are online. And that's the problem, because when they are online, they no longer require that real life connection. And that's the problem, because we as people, we are social creatures and we need other people to be around us, as I said. But we don't have that anymore, because everything basically just fucked off to the online world. A person cannot really create a true identity anymore, because they are a part of so many virtual communities that they cannot truly define themselves as a specific identity, or as a specific person, or as a member of a specific community, because all these communities influence their identities. Like, you have the identity of a person that's a member of so many communities that you can't really say that you have this specific identity, or your identity is way too fluid to be stable. That's the resulting issue of all this online shit, is that your identity is too fluid. Not like gender fluid, but it's still not a concrete, not like a specific identity. It's fluid. It always changes. It evolves over time, which is normal. The evolution of an identity is normal. The problem there is that it evolves so much and so rapidly, depending on which community you are currently a member of or really interested in, that You no longer just have this one specific identity. Your identity always evolves. It's not stable. And it gets so unstable that you don't really know who you even are anymore. If we counted virtual communities the same way as we count the real communities, then I would be a metalhead, and I would be a gamer, I would be a political activist, a musician, a YouTuber, a Phasmophobia player. I will be so many things at the same time, but I would not actually be just a gamer, just a musician, or just this one thing, or maybe one or two things, or even three things at the same time. Nowadays we are so many things that we don't even really know who we are anymore. Because we are members of so many virtual communities, we are interested in so much diverse shit that we don't really even have that specific thing that would define us, that would define our identity. Because all these interests, all these communities is what nowadays defines our identity. When we have all these unlimited options to create our identity, then we don't really know what to base our identity upon, and we base it on so many things that it's not a stable identity, it's not a concrete identity, it's a fluid identity. Disregard this online identity that you have, and who are you in your body? Who are you underneath the surface? Who are you when the internet turns off and you go to bed? Who are you in your skin? Can you tell me that? You are no one, because you base your entire identity on your interests. And it's certainly in the past it worked this way as well. But people in the past, members of subcultures or communities even, they really integrated these things into their identities. They were truly living that shit. You are not a specific person. You cannot really grasp the totality of your identity anymore. Or you can, but most of you who will see this video won't be able to say who you are. Most of you don't have an identity, or you have an identity. Rather, everyone has an identity, but your identity is too fluid to grasp even for you. Everyone has a fluid identity because we are forced to have fluid identities. And it's this perpetual cycle of I don't have an identity in real life because everyone went online, so I go online, and now it starts this vicious circle of identities and fluid identities and shit and victimization. It just perpetually keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And there will be a breaking point where this shit, where we will get either tired of this shit, or we will just fully succumb to it and society will collapse, basically. And nowadays, it's really ironic that this happened. It's really ironic to me, but the most surprising thing in this digital age, to me, is that there is a giant comeback of Christianity. So many young men specifically are becoming Christians again. Like, we are creating Christian communities in real life and in the online world. And people are really starting to base their identities on being a Christian and truly living that Christian life. People are really returning to Jesus. Do you understand that? Like, we as Gen Z, we lost communities, we lost identities. We didn't even know who the fuck we were anymore. But suddenly, we Gen Z men, we rediscovered that Christianity offers the solutions that we were looking for. It's this thing that our parents in Gen X abandoned, that our grandparents stopped caring about, that millennials rejected and tried to get us to reject it as well. Like, Gen Z started embracing that. Do you understand how funny that is? Because after the Second World War, Christianity was really on the down low and the numbers kept going down, and some researchers say that Christianity is still going down in numbers. But what I see in real life and on the internet is that there are more Christians now, not more than in the past, but more than 3 or 4 years ago. Like, Christianity is on the rise. And according to these two researchers that I found on the internet, Gen Z men are starting to embrace being Christian, and they are integrating Christianity into their identity, into their lives. It's changing their entire personality, it's changing the entire way they live, and the way they approach the internet and real life so much. They are doing it so much that Christianity is, at least in my opinion, on the rise again. It's cool to be a Christian, and it's a subculture, it's a culture of its own. There's so much diversity in Christianity, and yet people choose to embrace it anyways. Whether you are a Catholic like me, or whether you are Orthodox or Presbyterian or Lutheran, you have a choice there. But when you become a Christian, you suddenly become a part of this movement of young men or young people who decided to embrace Christ, because we've seen that the modern world doesn't offer us that much, and that the modern world is basically destroying our lives. And we rejected that, and we said, screw all this modern shit, I'm a Christian now. And yes, I swear as a Christian a lot. That's something I can't really get rid of. And that's an interesting thing to note here. It's young men who are choosing to become Christian, but not young women. Because the women I knew in real life and online, and the women around me that I see, started becoming more secular. They are more atheistic. They started rejecting Christianity at larger numbers. And why? Why is it that men are embracing Christ while women are leaving the church, while women are leaving Christianity? Why is that? And the simple answer is because it's the conditioning. It's what we see in the media. Because men were always told to be macho, to be alphas, to be the best versions of themselves, hardworking, get money, fuck bitches, get wife, get children, have money, be an entrepreneur, be a fucking man, have bitches, and then settle down, make money, have a trad wife. But women were told the exact opposite. Don't settle down, work hard, and men also were told to work hard, but women were told, you don't need a man to be happy. You don't need a man. You need your job. You need to be independent. You don't need kids to be happy. You don't need all this shit. All you need is yourself. And that's the other problem with today's society and with not today's identities. Because the only focus of it all is yourself. It's selfishness. And all this selfishness was implanted into us so much that we made it another part of our identity. Because we no longer want to sacrifice anything for other people. We just want to be selfish. It's all me, 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 and I'm so sad, and I have depression, and women don't want to fuck me, and all men just want to fuck me, and... Do you get it? You're a selfish fucking prick. You think only about what bothers you, what's bad about your life, but when you stop caring about that shit and when you start helping other people, that's when suddenly you don't think so much about how hard you have it. That's where you start realizing, oh, some people have it harder than me. And that's not meant to really diminish whatever mental health struggles or real struggles you might have in your life. That's just me saying that you are thinking about yourself way more than other people are thinking about you. And with this divide in the media and what men were pushed to be and what women were pushed to be, another interesting thing happened here, because suddenly there was this really big rise in interest in feminism in the 10s. And women really started calling themselves feminists. And people really started to call themselves liberals, and men started calling themselves red pillars, and really started calling themselves conservatives. And really in the past 10 or 15 years, you started seeing all this shit with the two sides of the barricade, like people just hating each other on the two sides. And they started perpetuating this hate. The media and the fear-mongering influencers, they started perpetuating this hate for the other side so much that we don't even know what the fuck the people on the other side are thinking. We have an idea of what they are thinking, but it's more of a caricature of their actual ideas rather than what they actually believe. So men were forced to be these alphas and sigmas and whatever the fuck, while women were really pushed by the media, like the romantic comedies and stuff, to be independent. And we need each other. Men and women need each other. So we were pushed by the media to be a specific thing. But that was in the time when the online world didn't yet exist. That was when we had movies, when we had news. But many people don't really do that shit anymore. They don't interact with it anymore. And so, since we had the online world and influencers, these people used these topics to enrich themselves on ad revenue and on garnering attention and donations from people by spreading these harmful stereotypes about the other side of the barricade. And they started perpetuating all this bad shit about modern society just so that they could get money. Basically, it's manufactured division. Again, as I've said in that one video, it's all manufactured division. It's nothing less, nothing more. All this shit wouldn't exist if there weren't people who were intending to make money off you and off your division. Nobody understands each other anymore. We don't really know what the opposite side thinks, because the people, the thought leaders on our side, really don't want us to know that. They want to create these effigies or these enemies that they can send their fans after. That's it. It's manufactured division. We have so much in common. We share so many values and we share so many ideas. And they are scared of that. They are scared that these influencers, both feminist and Sigma male gurus alike, are scared of the fact that people would realize that they have many things in common. And they don't want to let that happen. So what do? They perpetuate this culture war that fucks up their identities. And we are back to identities, finally. We diverged a lot, but the gist of it is that they forced a certain type of identity, or what their fans should be. They forced this shit on their fans. And then really they construct their identities on being anti-feminist or on being anti-chauvinistic. These people are basing their identities on shit that creates more division. And when you have division, such as this political one or the culture war one or whatever the fuck, then you don't really have a way to confront your identity with opposing ideas. You don't really have a way to change your identity, even though it keeps changing. You don't have a way to really see the harmful effects of your own identity, because you have all these enemies on the other side. And you don't listen to what they have to say. And you can't really consider what they are saying, because your thought leaders are telling you that they are fundamentally bad people. And nobody is really trying to find the middle ground, and everyone wants to pull the other side over to their side, but you can't really do that anymore. Again, how does this shit relate to identity? It relates to identity in that way that when you live in an echo chamber, you can't really change the way you think. You can't change your identity when you live in an echo chamber. That's the way your identity is influenced by other people. You become basically a part of an echo chamber that doesn't allow you to look outside or consider that, you know what, maybe the opposite side is right. Maybe this is really shitty about me. And when you get too deep into all this political shit and the culture war shit and the gender war shit, you really start constructing your identity around it so much that the only thing left for you to do is to construct your identity around the fact that you are a victim of the other side. when we are online, as I've said previously, when we are online, we don't see the people on the opposite side as real people anymore, because it's just the avatars on the screen. And the more and more we are online, the less we see other people as real people. Especially online, because you see just texts, and you see just sentences, and you see just posts. And you don't even consider for a moment that there's a person who had to sit their ass down in the chair, or on the toilet, or in their bed, and that person had to write that shit, and that they had to come up with that shit somehow. And you don't see see that experience, all that shit that led them to create an identity that would make them hold that belief that they would then decide to put on the internet for you to read. You don't see all that build up to that moment when they posted that shit. You just see the result. And that really dehumanizes. That's what really makes people not consider the fact that, oh, that person writing this has a reason why they believe that this is true, or why they hold this certain point of view. Like, you don't see the experience behind that identity. You don't see it because you can't see it. We don't see all these experience. We don't see what makes the identity that would force someone, or that would make someone to post something or to hold a certain view. And this creates dehumanization and the disregard for the experience of other people. We don't see the reasons why other people have the identities they have, because we don't really talk about that shit anymore. For example, in the start of this video, I talked about the identities in the Bible. And I said some reasons why I believe that these people have it this way. And I'm hitting on the fact here that I said that these people probably have a boring life because they don't have no one in their life. And maybe they were abandoned by other people and they need some way to garner attention. And how do they achieve this? Well, they achieve this by creating their personality in the bio. Like, all the tags, flags, and all that shit. They do that because it's the only way they have of creating an identity. From their experiences, they don't see any other way, even though there is another way to create an identity. They don't see any other way to create that identity. That's the thing. The dehumanization of today's society is so strong that we just disregard everything and everyone, sometimes even ourselves. But we don't look at the story behind those faces and those nicknames and those profile pictures. All we really see is just a liberal or a conservative. So what we found out today is that we become more extreme in our identities as a reaction to others becoming more extreme in their identities. But if we come close to people with the opposing identities and opposing views, and if we come to contact with the identities of other people, we can not only change our identity and mold our identity and mold the identities of other people, but we can also understand them, and we can understand them as the real human beings that they are. And we will start actually fixing those issues. If we just ask ourselves, why are you this way? You just ask the other person who hurt you, and not in like the ironic way, but in the I care about you way. Why do you believe that this is true? That something is true? When you really try to interact with the identity of others and the personality of others, and when you start trying to understand others, that's when we start fixing all these fucking issues with the culture war and the gender war and politics and everything I've mentioned in this video. When we just try to understand other people. It's simple, but it's hard. Why? Because the online world. And I've already discussed all these issues, but the problem with internet, the basic point, the TLDR of those internet parts, is that the internet introduced so much diversity into our lives that we have such fluid identities and such fluid interests that we can't really craft a specific identity anymore. We don't really have a specific identity, and this lack of identity creates a necessity to justify your existence in ways that will inevitably create more division and will perpetuate it. And while it's important to call out injustices and wrongs of other people, don't become so extreme that you stop viewing others as real people. And don't become a part of an echo chamber. Really try to think about your identity and really try to think in a way that you would question even your own views, your own beliefs. Don't just take anything that some famous person or big speaker, influencer that gives you, or a politician. Question it. Question that shit. Don't just be a sheep that just follows the fucking shepherd. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. Create a true identity, but don't just base your entire identity on pain. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say here. And most importantly, never dehumanize anyone else. Every time you are on the internet, really think about who are you talking to, what might have led them to the point where they hold the views that they have now. And basically, that's it. Bye.